Hey YouTube, this is probably going to be my first video on the channel, Life is Hard mode, and I want to talk about something that's first of all, my name is Forbes, Forbes, it's spelled like the magazine, but I don't have the net worth of some of the people in there, unfortunately, but that's not the point here. I just want to discuss a topic that's been pretty close to something that was been on my mind for a while now, and that's the topic of hearing loss and the issue of being stuck between two worlds, and I'll explain that later in the video. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born with severe to profound hearing loss in both ears. My right ear is a little better than the left ear, and that's the ear I wear the hearing aid in, and I've worn that for quite some time, pretty much all my life. And I used to wear two hearing aids, but I found that over time it really didn't make me hear better, and as a matter of fact, it actually sometimes made me hear worse because there was so much sound in the background competing. There was two hearing aids, too much background noise competing, and so I would have trouble. I'd actually have more trouble hearing that way. So one hearing aid ended up being better in my case for the speech discrimination, and so yeah, I was born with bilateral hearing loss. I don't know the exact term after that, but it was both ears. And from there, I want to talk to you about some of the experiences that people go through. But really, I wanted to dive in more into an issue I don't think the media or really the internet, I see much information on. You always see things, obviously, about people that can hear, and that's, I want to say like 80 to 85%. We all know most people can hear. That's a statistical fact. But the other side of that, the flip side of that, you hear the deaf world and their issues, and rightfully so. They have a lot of issues. But what I want to cover more is the people with severe to profound hearing loss, which I have, and even mild hearing loss. This is why I referred to the term previously. I talked about stuck between the two worlds, meaning the hearing world and the deaf world. And I feel like in some ways, this is a topic that's not being talked about. I feel like in some ways this is actually one of the tougher roads, because whereas you're deaf, generally a lot of times you'll take sign language, you'll take well, we'll just go with sign language for now, because that's a good base for people who are deaf. And by the way, before we go any further, if I'm using any terms incorrectly for the deaf community or the hearing loss community, let me know. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm not trying to, purposely step on anybody's toes. I'm just telling my perspective from my point of view. And this is going to be somewhat of a, I don't want to say rant, but almost a PSA, educational video. And it's more for people, it's really for everyone, because if you have friends or family that deal with hearing loss, this is good to know. And obviously people who are in similar situations as mine, can relate. So I hope it helps out. But getting back to what I was saying before, they stuck between the two worlds. You have people in the deaf community who have obviously they can't hear at all in most cases, and they use sign language. In my case, when I was growing up, that wasn't considered the norm when you had severe to profound hearing loss, mild hearing loss, or just a little more than mild hearing loss. They tried to, in my case, I didn't go to a deaf school. They wanted me to go to a deaf school, but I went up through the public school ranks, and got speech therapy. I still can mispronounce words every now and again. I can't always hear the right tone and sound, but and by the way, I also have a deep voice on top of that, so I think it also got deeper because of the hearing loss, but I've always had that anyway. So for those of you who can't tolerate deep voices, I'm sorry, you're out of luck, but that's not the case. That's not the point. What I was saying before is when you have when you're stuck between the worlds, people don't really give you the they're not aware. It's really an awareness video because they're not aware that just because you can read lips very well, you've had speech therapy, it doesn't mean that you can't have some accommodations here and there. And I think it would serve well to have more things with the media put out there that can describe things by way of people's experiences in hearing loss, such as maybe when you know a person has hearing loss, you face them more directly, you enunciate your words. And I realize that not everybody can think of this 24/7, but that's why I'm making videos. That's why I feel like I can help out by making these YouTube videos and giving experiences. This video is going to be more of an overall video, so I'll go into more details in later videos probably. But the main point I want to hammer in this video is the stuck between worlds, how it can hurt unemployment, and I've dealt with that a lot. I'm currently in between jobs now, so I have time to make YouTube videos for that fact, and I have a little bit of backup in the meantime. But yeah, so the point of this whole thing, this channel, Life is Hard Mode, on hard mode. By the way, that term is a gaming term, but that's one of my passions. It's gaming, and Life on Hard Mode. The hard mode setting, obviously, is a gameplay that's harder than normal. Than the way the normal setting is usually the default setting, and hard mode is the more difficult setting in a lot of games. And I kind of describe that as if life was a video game with hearing loss, you'd kind of be on hard mode. So it's not a victimization thing. It's just a kind of a cute little analogy I came up with. But yeah, so I had speech therapy in school. I tried to rise up through the ranks in public school, and for the most part, it was fine. I didn't really. You always get the occasional bullying and teasing, but that's something I can also help with. If people are dealing with that kind of stuff with hearing loss or really any kind of bullying, feel free to leave comments or contact me. I've been through some of that. I was a little bit fortunate in that I was a bigger kid and I played a lot of sports, so the acceptance was a little better in terms of that. But I think people who have any sort of a thing that kids can prey upon and tease, I think the real general thing is to not take it so personally and to roll with it. And if you got a few smart remarks that you want to throw back them, that's always great too. If you got a few great one-liners, you can always throw it back to them, and they sometimes get a little shocked, and that always surprises them too. But for the most part, I had a pretty normal childhood, normal school life. But having hearing loss, it tends to lend itself to some seclusion rather than inclusion. And I always thought the torturous part about hearing loss for me was I describe myself as an extrovert. I like to talk. That's kind of why it's kind of comforting having to make these YouTube videos. I kind of like it. But I was an extrovert that was... I'm just seeing how much time so far. Okay. This is probably going to be one of my longer videos. I don't mean to drag on. But I was an extrovert that I would describe myself, but I would become introverted because of the hearing loss. Because this is another key issue I want to hammer. When you can sort of hear and you read lips very well like I do, my speech discrimination and my hearing test is 95%, so I can discriminate speech pretty well if I know what they're saying. But a lot of times in public settings and other venues where you're out and about, it makes it difficult because just for the simple fact of you don't want to say, what did you say, 5,000 times. It's not that I have no problem saying that, but when you keep saying and saying, it gets tiring for the person listening and tiring for the person, having to say it again. And I totally get that. And that's why another reason I'm making this video, just to have the awareness that, people eventually, give up in that thing. So texting is great. I think texting is a great tool. Email, the smartphone really has helped people like me communicate and just get around a little better. I tend to use the laptop more than a smartphone, but most people I know use a smartphone, communicate and things like that. But I just wanted to lay out that little background so you guys have an idea of who I am and where I'm coming from. And in terms of, when I was saying before about you don't want to repeat yourself of what did you say, this also applies to employment. And I think employers would do well to really, if any employers come across this video, then that'd be amazing. But employers would do really well. It would serve them to have a lot more awareness in terms of phone work, and they even sometimes people, in my case, can do everything but the phone work, because a lot of times, even with the accommodations of phone work, like this caption call, the captions don't always work right, or they're not fast enough. So people can have jobs where they can do everything but the phone work. And I feel like that's something going forward we can have a little more activism about. And I feel there isn't really too much being said on the internet about this. Like I said, there's the hearing world and the deaf world. And I feel like it's either one or the other, and we're not really getting that middle ground either. So I'd like to eventually, I do have a Twitter. I'll put that on my, under the description below. When I'm done with this video, and eventually I'd like to make a website or some type of Facebook group going forward, but that's all in the future. I just wanted to get you guys introduce yourself to my guys, to me, and hopefully I didn't sound too scatterbrained or all over the place. This is my first YouTube video, so I'm trying to learn on the fly, if you will. And by the way, if my quality or sound is way out of whack or anything like that, I think I may have turned up the gain too high on the mic, so it might be a little too loud. But you guys let me know in the comments or contact me. And let's see, I do have some notes in front of me, so if you see me looking down, that's what I've been doing. I'm trying to make sure I cover everything. Yeah, so that's the big issue I want to cover going forward. This whole phenomenon of stuck between the two worlds. That's what I'm going to keep hammering throughout my videos. And some of the videos going forward, I might talk about different things like gaming or, any other hobbies I might have. And I might be more hyper-focused on specific topics like employment, everyday life, dealing with depression if you get depressed because you have hearing loss, or for any other issue for that matter if you want to talk about. Feel free to send me questions and comments. I'll happily respond to them. I'll even read them out if you want me to. We'll have a question and answer segment in some of my videos. But just think of this as a safe haven, if you will, for people with hearing loss, or if you have friends and family with hearing loss. Feel free to comment here, come here. If you have ideas for me to make videos, I'll do that. If I feel like I can relate to it in some way and offer some expertise or experience or input. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I wanted to cover for now. And once again, I apologize if it sounds a little discombobulated and all over the place. Hopefully, going forward, I'll have more more structure and maybe some video editing. I've never been a good video editor, but I'm just trying to learn that a little bit as well. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, comments, my name is Forbes once again, and I'm looking forward to making YouTube videos. I look forward to talking to you guys, whether it's by email or whatever. And yeah, I hope you guys have a nice day, and I'll talk to you later. Take care.